So sorry, just had an interruption that I had to address. So as I was mentioning, that in inauthenticity, that's a big thing that it's talked about in existentialism as well as intersubjectivity. So the fact that we two people can view the same thing and they can view it in completely different manners, and that is why. Um, you have soldiers that are working in the same groups, in the same team, same battalions, and one soldier can come back and not have the PTSD syndromes, but another soldier can have mild, another soldier can have severe. Part of that is their interpretation of the events and how their coping skills, as well as processing skills, as well as kind of history of you know the previous mental illness history that can all affect how a soldier or really anybody that goes through trauma, um, victims of terrorists or just violence. A lot of that varies, and part of why that varies, according to existential, is that intersubjectivity. So, Frankel called existential therapy logotherapy. Just be aware of the term, and he mentioned what we call healing through reason, and that's really important. Is we're not trying to put a band-aid. We're not trying to trying to rescue them. What an logotherapist is doing is they're trying to figure out these challenges, figure out these kind of inauthenticities, and really create that meaning for them. So, um, some of the, like I mentioned, I've worked with a lot of immigrants, Spanish speaking um, populations, and what I found was that isolation when they immigrate, their support system, doesn't really exist. There's a language barrier. There's a lot of challenges, financial, cultural, stigmas, as well as legal. So part of my work is to let the client know, yes, these challenges exist. There's inauthenticities. There's all these things. But look at your resiliency. Look at how far you've come. Look at all that you've done, and look at your authentic self. Look at all that and figure out what that means to you. Because I can't rescue you. I can't be there 24 hours a day. Um, I'm only here once a week, and I'm only here to really hear you out, to support you, but I can only do this so far. Um, phenomenology, I have trouble saying that. My dissertation was a phenomenological study. Um, that's talked about in logotherapy. And what that means is that everybody views things subjectively through their eyes, which is was talked about in person centered, as well as in Gestalt. Um, like I mentioned, two people can view the same thing and they can view it in completely separate terms. Um, the logotherapist also talk about presence. Um, So, being there, those core conditions that Dr. Rogers talked about. And another thing is resistance. Um, a lot of clients that I've worked with, they show a high level of resistance because they're so marginalized. So they've been mistreated, discrimination, on different levels, cultural, racial, um, sex. So when they've gone through all that, they've learned that the world is not safe. And part of a counselor role is for the client to put that, put really put the arm, put their inauthentic self down, because it is only through their authentic self that they can really know who they are. Um, and that's part of their self-awareness, being aware of kind of who they are, the why, where they want to go, um, and kind of their strengths. Um, and finally, um, you know, Dr. Frankel talked about restrictive existence, and that is kind of existing in a state of limited awareness. So, not really being aware of things, and that's part of kind of that skewed perspective. What I really want to emphasize to the students is that logotherapy is about awareness, it's about creating meaning, it's about exploring the whys. Um, and like I said, I could spend the whole semester talking about logotherapy, the different philosophers, but I really want to get this point across is that part of the healing process for logotherapists is to look at those, and I would call them, that meaning that, when we talk about um, the big two, depression and anxiety, a lot of times it's that meaningless, that lack of joy, um, that students, clients just are not enjoying life. They're saying, oh, it's such a monotony. Every day I'm doing the same thing. Every day I'm listening to the same people. It's just not fun. Okay, I hear you. I'm here to support you, and I see that your view of how you're perceiving things is very real to you. But let's take a step back and let's look at everything. Let's look at all your surroundings, all your environments, all your choices, all your freedoms. And with that freedom comes responsibilities. And developmentally, a child, as they grow, they're going to have more and more freedom, yet more and more responsibilities. So that's about wraps it up for existential. I'll talk about just Gestalt next. Okay.